There have been a lot of changes in the legal immigration process to make it harder for people to become permanent residents, remain legally in the US, become citizens. And I actually think, as far as citizenship is concerned, things are going to get much worse in the next year or so, but hopefully I'm wrong. For those of you who've been subscribed to my channel for a while, you may recall that as soon as Trump won the election, I put out a series of videos talking about how bad immigration is going to become for immigrants. And those videos got a lot of views. And a lot of the people who commented on the videos said, like, you don't know what you're talking about. Trump's just going to be deporting the criminals. Well, now we know that anyone who pretty much isn't a US citizen in one form or another might be called a criminal. Even if they are lawfully present in the US as a permanent resident, there's always some way in which USCIS under the Immigration and Nationality Act, or ICE under the Immigration and Nationality Act, can attack you, whether it's for political speech or just being at the wrong place at the wrong time. You might find yourself in removal proceedings. Now, I think a lot of this is hyped up. I actually don't think that most permanent residents have anything to worry about, but I wanted to take this video as an opportunity to discuss some of the big changes to legal immigration, because as everyone now knows, this was never about just stopping illegal immigration. Now it's clear, as I've thought all along, that this process has been about slowing down all immigration into the United States and to creating a more exclusionary United States. One of the places in which we've seen dramatic changes to the process from a year ago is in marriage-based immigration cases. So the biggest change we've seen in the past year is that every green card applicant, whether it's for a green card through the parent of a US citizen or spouse of a US citizen, child of a US citizen, refugee, special immigrant juvenile status, VAWA, it doesn't matter how you're applying for permanent residence, you are most likely going to be scheduled for an interview. And what this is doing in practice is increasing the processing delays and creating more ways in which immigration officers can deny cases. A year ago, if I filed a marriage-based green card case and we had some pretty decent evidence that the marriage was in good faith, it was quite common for us to just receive an approval notice with no interview about 6 months later. Now, you're 100% going to receive an interview appointment notice, and those interviews are becoming more and more hostile as time passes. I put out a recent video about a bad experience some of my clients had at a marriage-based green card interview, but I'll just talk about some of the things that have been happening. Some people have been asked to show the immigration officer their text messages. Some people have been asked to open up their social media accounts and show those to immigration officers. There have been new policy guidelines put out where USCIS is openly admitting and saying that they're going to be reviewing people's social media accounts for adverse information that they could use to deny certain immigration benefits, or even possibly even begin removal proceedings for misrepresentations or certain group affiliations that the person might belong to. We've also seen in some locations throughout the United States, married couples being separated at their initial interview, even though they haven't been flagged for any sort of fraud or misrepresentation, which is a pretty dramatic departure from how things were just a few months ago. Now, historically, there have been times where people would be separated at their first green card interview before the Biden administration, but it was pretty rare. And now it's making a major comeback and becoming more and more prevalent in certain cities where they have USCIS field offices. Another big change that we've seen, and I think this is actually one of the most consequential changes, even though it's not talked about that much, is the notice to appear policy, whereby USCIS will automatically refer denied green card applicants to immigration court to begin removal proceedings. And this has a really detrimental effect. I mean, some people think that they could file their green card application by themselves, the family petition, green card, affidavit of support, work permit, like the whole adjustment of status package. And historically, I would have said, if you think you can do it and you read all the instructions and you understand you're taking a little bit of risk and you treat it like a full-time job for like around a week, then you can do it. I've seen people do it successfully. I've seen many people do it successfully. In fact, there are entire like online message boards on Reddit or Facebook dedicated to helping people do it themselves. The problem now is that if you take a crack at it and you make a mistake and the green card application gets denied, you will very likely end up in removal proceedings. So something that might have cost you like $3,000 to $4,000 for an attorney to do it for you, plus the government fees. Now, if you end up in removal proceedings, add $8,000 to $10,000 just for that part, plus the $3,000 to $4,000 for the attorney to do the green card case, plus whatever the government filing fees are. And that assumes you didn't make a fatal error. Like, for example, misrepresent your employment history and end up making misrepresentations during the interview and then get your green card denied due to a fraud or misrepresentation. Like if that happens, forget about just paying for removal proceedings and a new green card application. Now you're going to need a fraud waiver, which can easily add another $5,000 to the process plus government filing fees. So altogether, something that may have cost you $3,000 to $4,000 for an attorney, plus another like $2,300 to $3,000 for government fees, might end up costing you that, plus another $15,000 to $20,000 to defend you in removal proceedings, applied for a fraud waiver, and do the initial green card application. So like these are just kind of made up numbers, but they are based in some fact. These numbers are not too far from what my office would charge. I'm not making these numbers up out of thin air. It all comes down to what you can personally afford and how much risk you're comfortable with. But these new policies create a massive chilling effect. And people who are eligible for permanent residence might put it off. And then the question becomes, am I taking more risk by putting it off and remaining undocumented or without status? Or am I taking more risk by submitting this green card application with or without an attorney? So it's a personal decision. I recommend at least speaking with an attorney before you make a decision, but that's been one of the most consequential and biggest changes that we've seen since the new administration. Another big change that we're seeing is the reduction in USCIS staff. A good number of the USCIS career employees have recently begun a mass exodus where they're quitting USCIS. There was a very now popular Reddit post from an ex-USCIS officer explaining how their working conditions are miserable now. And USCIS has changed all of their policies, forcing everyone to come into work every day, reducing overtime, reducing employee benefits. They're not allowed to have a Halloween party anymore. Like a lot of things have been done to make their jobs harder. And when I attend USCIS interviews now, like ordinarily, you would just wait 30 minutes, 45 minutes for an interview. There have been times recently where I've waited 4 hours for my clients to be interviewed for their marriage-based green card or other green card. And when they go into the interview, it's clear that the immigration officer is really frazzled, rushed. They haven't looked at anything that we've previously submitted, even though the case has been pending for like more than 6 months. And they just kind of rushed the interview. And we've had good outcomes, but the immigration officers are clearly going through hell right now. And the processing delays are really beginning to accumulate. So one of the bigger changes is just seeing a slowdown in benefits, which I think is a part of the bigger plan that, Stephen Miller has here, which is just slow down to a grinding halt legal immigration while simultaneously focusing on aggressively deporting people who are unlawfully present in the United States. And when you take these as a whole, there's no way to interpret this other than the US is now anti-immigrant. We do expect more immigration changes coming out in the near future. In fact, I made a video a few months ago where an immigration officer told me that if anyone qualifies for naturalization, they should submit the application immediately because the officers are getting all sorts of guidance and internal information suggesting that there are going to be some major changes to the naturalization process coming up soon to reduce the number of people who qualify for naturalization. Historically, and even today, around 92% of people who apply for naturalization get approved. So my advice to everyone after learning this from the USCIS officer has been, if you qualify for naturalization and you want to naturalize, either apply right now or wait until the Trump administration is gone or there's a more favorable government in place before you submit your naturalization application. Because at least for the next 4 years, there's never going to be an easier time than right now for naturalization. All right, guys, that's it for today. If you want to consult with me directly, I handle cases nationwide. I promise you that if I consult with you, I will not try to sell you on any services. I will just use our consultation time to provide as much value and information as possible. So if you want to talk to an attorney about a situation you're dealing with, or if you might consider hiring an attorney and you're just not sure, you're on the fence and you just want to talk to someone, schedule a consultation with me. My information is in the video description below, and I'll see you guys next time for another video.